Hey everyone, we're live, pal. Myself, Double G, here with Andrew Zarian. We're going to talk a little Backlash. We'll talk about some of the news coming out of Backlash as well. And then a little bit about Dynamite, because Dynamite is featuring Wardlow and MJF in a pretty heated segment that I want to get Andrew's thoughts on. And also on the main event for Double or Nothing, which is CM Punk versus Hangman Page. And Andrew, we're actually taking questions. Let people know how they can ask us a question, and we'll be able to kind of take them as the show goes on. We don't have to save it for the end either.
Yeah, man. If you use the hashtag ask WL Jesus WLP. I can't. I'm losing my mind here. Hashtag ask WLP, and we'll answer your questions throughout the entire show. We have a couple queued up anyway, so just use that hashtag throughout the entire show, and Garrett will pop it up on screen.
All right. So Backlash happened on Sunday, which was also Mother's Day, which I'm sure meant that a lot of us who watched that show probably watched it on a little bit of a delay. It's maybe the first time that I felt, because of how we watch WWE premium live events, I wanted to. It's sort of like an a la carte show for me. I watched some stuff live. I watched the opener with Cody and Seth. I actually watched it at the gym. I was on one of the. I was on the elliptical watching it, and just I thought that was a great match. And then there were other matches where I was like, I'm not interested in this in any way, and I know that it's meaningless, and I know it's only on this show because there's nothing else better. Almost, and Bobby Lashley, Happy Corbin, and Madcap, and I just watched the stuff that I wanted to watch. And if you watch pay-per-views that way, because 4 of the matches were pretty darn good, it's like I had a happy time watching that show. But if you look at it in sort of like the whole sphere of this is a show from start to end, there was so many dead spots because of all the stupid video packages that they do. It is really WWE advertising WWE on WWE TV. I don't get it really, because it's a lot of it is unnecessary. But overall, if you watch it the way that that I sort of watched it, I thought it was a really good show. What were your thoughts on that show?
Yeah, I said this from the beginning when they did this card. It was definitely a lackluster build for this, because you kind of were told nothing is going to really happen here. But the matches were really good. The Ronda match was really good. The Seth match was really good. The only one that I was a little that 6-man, the main event, I thought was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I actually, it's funny. I've been doing this thing where I kind of gauge what the kids like now, because all my friends have kids. And I'm like, I'm curious, because I see, obviously we watch WWE in a very different way. Everybody, all the kids that I know said that was the match. That was the match that everybody loved.
Yeah.
Because listen, first of all, Riddle is hot right now. Orton's, I don't think he's been this over in a very long time. Roman, obviously, you don't have to say anything about. We already know. And the Usos are fantastic. So I think the actual card on paper was fantastic. And the matches that we thought would not do great didn't do great, right? Madcap Moss and Baron Corbin was whatever. It was okay. The Lashley stuff I hated. I don't like that entire match, the program at all. But the one that I was still a little surprised and I didn't love was the Edge and Styles match.
Yeah. I
don't know what's
get
going on there.
So
maybe the expectation was too high.
Here's something I wanted to ask you about, because this Edge character, it is a version of the WWE character that currently works, which is the former babyface and giant star turns heel and has a squad around him to basically, so he's kind of the top guy. This is what works with Roman Reigns, right? And the bloodline. And so they're kind of doing a different version of that on Raw with Edge, which I think on paper kind of looks very interesting, especially when you add Damian Priest into this thing. Rhea Ripley coming into this thing is really cool. But I think the difference here is the Roman group is sort of the badass cool heel group, And this Edge group is like the thinking person's heel group. And so
Yeah.
I'm not sure that Edge comes off as this really cool heel, but he's not dastardly enough to be the, the heel that's going to get a ton of heat. And these promos that they do, though last night's promo I thought was okay. I thought it was it's a lot of the same stuff of blaming the fans and no Edge. No one really, when you came back, everyone was excited. Like that's just totally stupid for him to keep going there. But I don't know. There's a different factor. The only way that I can describe it is a coolness factor with Roman versus Edge, because it's literally the same type of group, right? Top heel, big star, has the crew around him. But and then also, I also want you to comment on what you thought about his hair on Monday.
Of course, I got to comment. I thought his hair looked great. He definitely
It kind of looks like your hair.
It's the same style, you know. Except I fade mine in because I'm from Queens. You got to have the zero fade, the skin fade up. I thought he actually looks younger, which is a positive.
Yes.
Which kind of needed it because he was looking really grizzled with that lion mane that he had. I thought the promo was fine. It's this new Edge character that he's been doing for a while. It's methodical. It's more, psychologically driven. Rhea Ripley being a part of that fits very well. I guess, when was I told about when did we discuss Rhea Ripley joining him? Like
a couple weeks ago, for sure.
Yeah. The only thing that, on that same message I got, had the information about Ronda, and I'm still curious if they're going to do Ronda and Shayna now that she has the title.
Shayna tweeted, or no, Instagram, a picture of her and Ronda on Sunday. I don't know. She always does because they're really good friends. But yeah, who knows about that? Like that would be an interesting turn to, what they're doing, and I'm sure they would both love it because they would love to work with each other.
Of course, yeah. I don't know. I always say when you go in with no expectation, not lower expectations, but no expectation, it really. It ends up becoming a better show when you go in blindly. I had no expectation for the show. I thought the matches that were going to be good were obviously going to be good, and other than that, I was not invested emotionally. So I actually very much enjoyed it.
And that's the thing, right? It's a positive and a negative, and probably more negative if neither of us who watch this stuff and talk about this stuff several times a week, if we're not invested in what they're doing and we just sort of watch it because we had to. Like, imagine if we didn't do this podcast. It's quite possible that I would have just skipped the show because there's so many
I have a question for you. We're live right now, right? I'm getting a call from WWE.
Wow.
Right now. Uh-oh. Do I answer? Do I answer it live on the air? No, I can't
do it. That's. I'm wondering if you're getting in trouble.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, no, I'm not getting in trouble because they're probably calling to answer my question about Roman Reigns.
Okay, so let's actually go. So just real quick, a la carte pay-per-view. Watch the stuff that you're interested in. They're just matches. The finishes, especially in the main event, Dave Meltzer and I were talking on Friday on Wrestling Observer Radio, and he was going through all the scenarios that would actually lead to something bigger out of that show. And I said, I'm kind of scared that Roman's just going to pin Riddle and then it's going to be over. And he's like, that could definitely happen too. And then it's exactly what happened. So, they could have created a couple things out of there, but based on what we're going to talk about in a second, maybe that's why they did it that way. The other one, though, Cody and Seth, great match. I really loved it. 2 bangers back-to-back, WrestleMania and WrestleMania Backlash. And then they're doing it again. Seth just attacks him in the theory match. Seth loses 2 matches, and we're going to do a third match. Why and how?
Yeah, do you think it's too many times?
Okay, so if the idea of a conflict is the person who wins the battle, the conflict is over and we move on, Cody won 2 matches. Even if Seth wins the third match, are they going to come back for a 4th match? Are they going to come back with a 5th match? Is this? Because maybe they can because the matches are so good. Yeah, Cody tugged on the tights a little bit to win the match,
Yeah.
but
I don't know. I think it should be over at this point, right? Like they can move on, and Seth is not like Seth didn't get hurt by losing twice, right? But does he get hurt by losing 3 times? I think so, maybe a little bit, right?
then it scares me that he's going to actually win this match and make
Mm,
it all for naught.
I don't know, man. I don't. He should not be. He should not be losing for a while.
And it's
Cody's
going to
not
have to
someone
be
that should be losing.
it would have to be a stipulation match, right? So maybe maybe they don't have anything for Hell in a Cell, and they're trying to find something for Hell in a Cell. Could be.
It could be. I mean, it really could be. Or what's the next? Yeah, Hell in a Cell is next. I keep forgetting
It's
that.
next.
That pay
Yeah.
per view's in the middle of this. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
the lame duck pay-per-view because everyone's waiting for Money in the Bank in the big stadium.
so do you put some sort of stipulation on the line where the winner now qualifies for Money in the Bank? I mean, they essentially told you that Cody's in Money in the Bank, so you can't even do that. Who was in that commercial? I can't remember who was in it.
Yeah, and so okay, so that I was also going to ask you that. Let's go there, and then we'll come back to Roman.
Yeah,
It in the commercial they made it sound like the winner gets a title shot at WrestleMania, right? Or
they
is it
did.
only if Cody wins he wants the shot at WrestleMania? Like I think there's some confusion there, and probably confusion that they created on purpose to kind of, get people talking, which is smart to do. But what did you think about that?
I it did create a conversation around Money in the Bank, which is a positive, right? I don't think I listen. If Money in the Bank was in like September or October, I
Yeah.
would think that would be a really interesting concept, right? You changed it up where they're not going to cash in immediately, but now this guy holds the key, and maybe you could defend that key like how they do in Japan, where you could lose the briefcase. You know, when
And is
in Japan with that briefcase, they could lose
yeah,
it, right? You could defend the
it's
briefcase. So
interesting.
maybe they would do it that way. I hope not. I think the unexpected surprise of winning works, especially for someone like Cody. It'll work. And then
So I
Garrett,
know
can you just go to Garrett for a second? My door opened.
Uh-oh. Okay, so here's what's interesting about this because I think what frustrated people is that they thought, "Hey, the thing that I love about this Money in the Bank briefcase is the actual cash in, the surprise of the cash in."
Yeah,
However, Cody's a babyface. We saw Big E cash in as a babyface in a surprise way, which does not help the babyface, right? The babyface sets a match and goes, "This is the match that I want, one on one, no surprises." And so, in that sense, it works great to me. Cody cashing in at WrestleMania because he's standing by. He's not going to sneak attack anybody because he's a babyface. So I think that works. But to some fans, part of the intrigue in the Money of the Bank briefcase is the idea that there's a surprise cash in, which for a heel to win that briefcase, perfectly fine for me. But in this case, I do think it is better for Cody to figure out a long-term plan, which means if he
yeah.
does win this Money in the Bank and he does set aside, we're this is 9 months out for WrestleMania, then you can build towards something. My fear is that they change their mind so often that they could, kill months and months and months of stuff in just one fell
Well,
swoop.
yeah. So there's so many different variables here, right? Like let's look at all the variables on the table. Roman holds both the titles, right? So both
Yes.
titles belong to Roman at this moment. You have Royal Rumble, which historically is the challenger. The winner of Royal Rumble is the challenger for the title. And then Elimination Chamber is used also somewhat for this, for challenges for the title at WrestleMania. Now you have that third variable where Money in the Bank, possibly the winner challenges at WrestleMania. You got to get the title off of Roman if he's taking time off, maybe. Who knows? Which obviously we're going to go into. Which title goes where? Um, and then the time frame of like, God forbid, there's an injury, and you built all this time, like you were saying. Let's say Cody wins that Money in the Bank in July. You got to go all the way to March, April. A lot could happen.
Yeah.
So I
It,
don't know, man. I think it's it's a little too early to be talking about WrestleMania in that sense, but maybe they have a plan. Maybe this is a swerve in some sense.
Okay, but does this fit the Cody story though? Remember, he came back that Monday and he talked about, what his goal was. He showed the belt, right? His dad's belt. And this is kind of this is where he's going. This is the long-term goal. I think it fits with that story. And I'm kind of for the idea that if Cody wins, he's just calling a shot. He's like, I'm not, I'm not wasting this. This is the shot. It's WrestleMania, and that's a great. I think that's a great long term story. But again, my worry is that Vince wakes up one day and he's like, oh, this isn't working. Now Cody, you're gonna lose it to the Miz because we need heat, right? Like that's the worry. So,
Yeah.
I think this is more on, can WWE hold off and tell a long-term storyline with all these hours of TV, every week? Can they be patient enough and do it so that we get that payoff? Because it would be a glorious payoff. But here's the other thing. So we also know that the long-term goal for WrestleMania is The Rock, right? It's The Rock and Roman.
The
So
plan, yeah.
so does that mean that's not happening and Roman is going to defend against Cody next year at WrestleMania? Or does it mean that Rock and Roman is not for the title and Cody is going to beat somebody else? Because if Cody's beating somebody other than Roman, this long-term WrestleMania storyline, I don't think is as strong.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, let me just say that I don't think Roman needs the title for that Rock match. Would it add another layer of importance? Sure, but the fact that we've waited so long for it, and the head of the table stuff, and the family connection, and the Samoan tribal chief story, all of that plays. I think that's more than enough, right? And I think having the Rock there is more than enough. The young Rock tease, yeah. I mean, what great synergy. Right?
Yeah.
Right around WrestleMania time, right? Or right after WrestleMania, they did it the week after. So, I mean, this is all, it's not a coincidence that happened. It's not a coincidence that they showed Roman. He doesn't really need the title. So now you're going to have, Rock and Roman, obviously the main event. Maybe you do Orton and Cody. You could do Cody and there's so many different options you could do. And then plus you have that other second title. So you have 3 major super matches happening. You could plan it that way, and then maybe that Austin variable. I don't know.
Well, yeah. What did you think about his quote after, where he said, I mean, he didn't shut the door 100%, but it seemed like that he felt that was kind of the way to go out, and because he was so unhappy with the way his career had to end without him being in control of it.
Listen, a lot could happen, and there's a lot of money on the line too. You got to remember that. I think if he goes out like this, if this was the last time we saw Steve Austin in anything in wrestling, I would be more than happy. Like this was what a great send off for the guy. But they're in LA. The Rock's back. Night 2, The Rock's on. Maybe you do a night 1 with Austin, and he could do something. Do this. Bring it down to 7 minutes. You don't have to go to 12 or 15, whatever the hell they did. Bring it down to 7 minutes. Do something in the ring. I think there's going to be a lot of emphasis on this WrestleMania. Every indicator, when I speak to people in that company, everybody realizes the importance of this LA show because it will definitely be a travel destination for people. It will be a packed, sold out building. It's in Hollywood, so the press around it is a big deal. I mean, not to say that Arlington, Texas isn't a big deal, but it's not Los Angeles when it comes to media attention.
Yeah.
Did you
see Denise's tweet?
No, what was it? Hollywood Denise Salcedo's tweet?
Yeah, Hollywood Denise. So I forget where she was at, but she was talking about going to see Gabriel Iglesias, the fluffy guy. And I guess she was going with her boyfriend, but she had taken some photos of a screen promoting that WrestleMania was coming to LA, and we're 10 months away and they're already doing that. So that is definitely going to be a big deal. Is it going to get you to come fly out to LA?
Oh, I'm going to be out in 100%. I'm going to be in LA. I'm going to be in LA in a month, less than that.
Oh wow!
I'm taking a little So for Double or Nothing, I'm coming down, and then the
Yeah.
flights were. Do you know how much I spent on these flights?
Had to be
Like
ridiculous.
$2,000, Garrett.
Yeah.
$2,000.
Just for me,
The
from the Bay Area to Las Vegas, it was ridiculous compared to what I would have spent 5 years ago.
I'm going from New York to Vegas, and then from Vegas, I'm flying to LA, and then from LA, like 2 days later, I'm flying back to New York. So it was crazy expensive. But
Wait, so does
I
this mean
love
you're
coming
going to
out
meet
to LA.
up? You're going to meet up with Hollywood Denise Salcedo?
Oh, I don't know. She's not coming to Double or Nothing? She is. She is coming to
No,
Double
she
or
is.
Nothing.
She is. But
We might be on the same flight back.
It's her hometown. It's her home. She's
Yeah.
got to show you around a little
Well,
bit.
listen, I'm gonna be in Beverly Hills. I'm not in like LA proper. I'm gonna be in Beverly Hills. I stay at a really nice place by the Beverly Hills Beverly Hilton. I'm gonna go to Javier's over there. I'm gonna go to the Peninsula. Maybe I'll go to the Waldorf Astoria rooftop. I got a whole plan for my
Only
2
the
days.
best. Only the best.
Only the best.
all right.
I think, but to kind of sum this up, there's going to be a lot of attention to LA. I would
Yeah.
expect it to be more than it would be in New York, to be honest, because it's not really in New York when they have WrestleMania here. So to be in LA proper and to be able to do this, I think it's a big deal for them.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like Airbnb or getting a bigger place with a few people. I wonder if that'll be more cost efficient than just trying to get a
Probably.
hotel for a few days. Yeah, I mean, it's not it's far enough away to where I'm not really too worried, but then again, you got to book those things so far in advance. So
Can I just put a disclaimer out there?
yeah,
I am not saying that Steve Austin will have another match.
okay, yeah.
I'm just
Don't
putting that
aggregate
disclaimer.
this.
I'm not
just
saying he's
hoping.
facing Bill Goldberg. I'm not saying that. Before I
We're
get
just
misquoted. We're just hoping. I
Okay,
wanna see
so
it.
let's go back to this Roman story. The Roman story, according to Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio. Dave, let's see, what did Dave say? Reigns is still scheduled for the 2 July pay-per-views during that time, Money in the Bank and SummerSlam, but outside of those 2 pay-per-views, he isn't listed on either graphics or a talent listing via WWE.com for any of the summer schedule that was released last week, which is 10-week stretch that runs from late June through near the end of August. So he also had that quote over the weekend where he was at the house show and he mentioned that, he may not be seeing fans for a while or something like that. So what is the story with Roman here? What's going on? And maybe it's on your voicemail. You got to check your voicemail for that call.
Well, they called me twice, and I messaged them and I said, "Can I call you after this?" And they said, "Yeah, no problem." So, I think maybe
You should have
I had
texted
2
him
questions.
back. You should have texted him back and said, "Hey, we're live, pal." And then
That's what I wrote, actually. That's what I wrote. I said, "Hey, we're live, pal. Can I call you later?" And he said, "Yeah, no problem." I think should he take time off? Yeah, of course. He's obviously he redid his contract. He's going to do less days. The dude deserves it. I don't think anybody's worked as hard as he has in that company to get a gimmick over or character over or get, he works super hard and he's very dedicated. And, you talk about a main event player. These guys don't come along too often that have the work ethic that he does.
Yeah.
A guy like John Cena, Steve Austin, even Hogan, like these guys come around once a decade. So when you have someone like that, you want to keep him happy, obviously. And maybe he doesn't want to do these as much. Trenton, New Jersey, it's not an A-list city, so maybe he's telling the truth. He's like, I'm not coming back to this crappy city in Trenton, New Jersey. No problem in Jersey here, but he should be taking time off. Absolutely. Maybe he's filming a movie. I don't know. I'm sure that's what that phone call was about, which I'll find out and I'll put a tweet out as soon as they tell me something. Or maybe they're going to tell me they don't know anything. I don't know. Sometimes I get that answer too. So him taking off in July, okay, fine. Maybe taking the summer off, but what happens beyond that, right? Like if Roman isn't on every Raw and every SmackDown and isn't on these house shows, what does that do to business? And this is going to be a good test because we saw when this happened with Cena years ago, when they initially pulled Cena back a little bit and he had a lighter schedule, they did see a drop.
So, what do we think he's doing? I mean, could it possibly be Hollywood related?
I would hope so. Like for me, obviously, because that's like the best thing. You don't want it to be a health issue. You don't want it to be he's getting burnt out. You don't want it to be,
Yeah.
uh, a negative. Hollywood would be the best thing because it's him progressing in his career. But he did say that his career is taking a different phase now. He's entering a different phase in his career. Um, the guy's carried a lot on his back for the last couple of years. So let's see what happens. What do you let me ask you, Garrett, what do you think
Mm-hmm.
this is? I know that Dave
Okay.
is, Dave was assuming some stuff, but he assumed like maybe it has to do with the movies. But what's your thought?
Okay. So the just my spidey senses immediately started to tingle and wonder if it is Hollywood involved. You remember the movie that he was in with The Rock in 2019, the spinoff from Fast and the Furious, which was Hobbs and Shaw. Roman Reigns is in that movie, and he is not a big player in that movie, but there was definitely some synergy with Roman Reigns' WWE character, and
He does a Superman
the
punch.
yeah, he did the whole thing from the corner as well, and so I looked online to see when is Hobbs and Shaw Part 2 coming out. And so I wonder if it could be for shooting that film. Though if it's for 10 weeks, then maybe it would be a bigger part, I'm guessing, because I don't imagine the amount of time it took him to shoot those scenes in the first film would be 10 weeks. And then I started to think, oh, maybe they can utilize that to build something out of them filming together for this match at WrestleMania. But who knows? Because did you see the thing with Vin Diesel?
No, what happened with Vin?
So Justin Lin got decided to step away from the latest Fast and Furious movie, and supposedly it was because of Vin Diesel just not being a professional, which is exactly what The Rock said about Vin a couple years ago when he opted out of the Fast and Furious franchise. Um, So, like, this is all it was just related to what we were talking about. Doesn't mean anything towards, what Roman Reigns is doing, but outside of John Cena supposedly being in that movie again. But yeah, so I'm just kind of wondering. It's possible that it's related. I may be sniffing completely in the wrong direction as well, but so I guess
Listen, it could
we'll
be
have
as
to
simple,
find out.
dude. It could be simple, like he's going away with his wife. He's taking a
Yeah,
month off with his wife, or like
and
a
look,
couple 6 weeks off.
the only thing that is if he was doing that, you would think that they would have kind of asked him to do it in sort of the dead week, maybe post SummerSlam, right? Like get through SummerSlam, then
Yeah.
we have August and September where we may not need you as much, and then maybe closer to November for Survivor Series, we'll need you a little bit more. Because if he's taking off TVs as well, then how is he going to build any of those programs? But I guess we'll just have to
I
sort
mean,
of
they
wait and
they
see
they
as
did
the
it
news
with
comes out.
Lesnar. They were able to build programs with Lesnar. Maybe they're thinking it's no big deal. They're able to replicate that, but I don't think they understand, or they do understand, I should say. What am I saying? They totally understand the importance of having Roman Reigns on their TV because look at SmackDown. They've been able to maintain those numbers, and that's primarily Roman Reigns. But it's when that report came out after WrestleMania that they didn't really have set plans for Roman.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of confusion as to what they're going to do with him next. Maybe this played a part in that. Maybe that was part of this.
We did get a question about what they may possibly do from Cody Fosterling on Twitter. How screwed is WWE without Roman? Because they have built all of their main event storylines and future storylines around him. Are they screwed? Is it an opportunity to build somebody else? Like, what do you think about that?
I think, considering the fact that they built both TVs on Roman now and the Usos, uh, I don't think they're ever screwed because they always have that mentality of you're just, that CM Punk famous line, and it's 100% true. You're a spoke on the wheel of the machine. And, when you think that way, you definitely think that you could replace someone. Will they take a hit? Yeah, of course they're going to take a hit, but I don't think it's going to be this 30% business is down, nobody's showing up to shows because they're very good at creating somebody temporarily very fast. So they have a number of options there to kind of take that. Cody is going to be that guy, whether people think it'll work or not. I think they're going to attempt it, and you could see that they're attempting it. Um, and first of all, I got to tell you, that dude looks great on that TV. He
Yeah,
fits in like a glove. I mean,
100%.
just he. Somebody said it to me, and I don't know how I feel about this, but they're like, Cody looks. WWE's done more to make Cody into a big time act than they did in AEW. And a lot of that is perception. And I think some of that also had to do with Cody holding himself back in AEW. But what do you think? Do you think that's true, that the overall presentation of Cody is grander than it was in AEW for his run there?
100%.
Other than the initial debut, right?
Well, even that initial debut, if you remember, those guys were almost a little worried to push themselves because they didn't want it to be like this vanity promotion, right? They knew that they were going to have to build new guys, and when you're one of the key guys and you're and you're a little bit older, like Jericho, Cody, I'm sure looked at it as, I can't just be the Hulk Hogan or the Dusty Rhodes of this promotion because I'll get a lot of negative feedback, especially from the wrestling fan base that we're trying to reach. So there was probably some of that. And now in WWE, if he gets pushed, he's not pushing himself, right? He's not the reason. It's not him pushing, writing the stories and all that. Now, I'm sure he has some major influence in what he's doing today. But he can say, look, Vince is pushing me. I'm not the one who's behind that. And then, he can't get the negative feedback from it because, now he can just be a wrestler. He doesn't have to be a suit. He doesn't have to be the Office and be a wrestler at the same time, which is, and I think a lot of that feedback is near and dear to his heart because that was the feedback Dusty got when he was, the top guy, right? And did you see the Cody thing with Stone Cold Steve Austin?
I did. I watched that whole thing 2 days ago. I thought it was a fantastic interview.
Awesome. It was great.
Yeah.
And Cody mentioned that, right? Like, you can tell he is his dad's biggest fan. He's going to defend his dad, his legacy and everything. But he mentioned that. He's like, yeah, Dusty was getting flack for being the top guy because he was also the booker. And then he was saying, but like he was also getting the most cheers and so, and near the end, I'm sure if you ask Dave, who was one of the folks who was covering this really closely and near the end of Dusty's run, there was a lot of people tired of Dusty in that top slot. But Cody was really defending it. But it also told me that he knows, right? He's aware of that kind of feedback, and he wants to make sure that that's not who he is, so he doesn't get that same flack.
Yeah, I sometimes maybe you think too much about putting. I think Raven said this one time, or somebody. I forgot who it was that we interviewed on Matt Man, and they said the people that get over the most are the biggest marks for themselves, and you have to be.
Yeah,
because nobody else is going to be your number one fan. You have to be your number one fan to get over.
Yep.
And when you think twice about maybe I shouldn't do this because people are going to think it's like a negative to propel your career, that's when you start falling behind. And look at the top guys in wrestling all along. These are guys that never thought of it that way. These are guys that wanted to be the top guy, and they became the top guy. So if you constantly think, I think for Cody, it was a case of unfortunate events with AEW. I think that stipulation for never winning the title kind of boxed them in. I don't think it was a creative, good pull. You could have done it organically, and where he's not able to do it. He challenges and he can't win, and he backs off for a little bit. But there was a lot of missteps there, but I think you're absolutely right. A lot of those missteps had to do with the fact that these guys didn't want to come out as the promoters that put themselves over with the title. I think Kenny, that was another example with Kenny. I think the Bucks were able to kind of lead the division in the tag division because it wasn't built as strongly. But I think in the case of Kenny Omega, he probably had the same idea in his head where he didn't want to come off as the guy that's going to put the title on himself.
Yeah, and it's a lesson that what you just said. This lesson is not just in pro wrestling, right? It's at any job that you do. I remember I had a manager This is very early in my career. And he said, you have to advertise your successes, because if you're expecting somebody else to, you may be
Hmm.
waiting for a long time. And
Yeah.
so, if you do a good job at something, you have to make sure that people know you're doing a good job. Now, in my current role as sort of the older one of the older
The
colleagues on the team,
boss.
I kind of I'm not necessarily even the boss, but I kind of look at it as like, I like to celebrate everyone else's successes, because you're sort of creating a culture in your team where one of my favorite quotes is by John Wooden, and I don't remember it exactly, but it's sort of about you know how things work so well when nobody cares who gets the credit. That's kind of how I live. But when you're early, and especially in a job like being a professional wrestler, where it is up to you to do everything, and you got to watch your own back, you have to say no when you need to say no. You need to be a team player when it's best to be a team player. Like, you had to know all of those things. And so advertising your successes is part of that job for sure. 100%.
I agree.
All right, let's take a look. Let's move a little bit towards AEW Dynamite, because it is in Long Island. Are you going to be going to this show?
I am not. Even though
Wow.
I was doing the math. It's closer to me than the Garden. It's about 10 minutes if I drove. I mean, I could probably I'm just not going. I got a busy day. I have dinner with clients. It's just not in the cards. It's funny because those Wednesday shows, I always thought that would be the best night to go see wrestling because it's like in midweek and Wednesdays generally get slow for me. It's been the total opposite, so I won't be there.
All right. We have another question. This is an interesting question, and I'm posing this because you, as the marketing guy, you got a
Yeah.
mind for this kind of stuff. So we got a question that says, "What should my sign say for Dynamite? Facing the hard cam."
I told him, so I responded to him. Okay.
Okay,
I
okay.
responded to him and I said, I think the sign should say Andrew Zarian's hair is much better than John Alba's. And he wanted a bribe. He said, okay, so how are you going to entice me? And I said, you got a Matman shirt with your name on it.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's actually great. But
Yeah.
that's
So I think let's see if he'll do it.
how many times does that sign have to be shown
All
in
show. The
order?
whole show. He
Just
needs to
tired
show
arms. Just, it's like, oh, my arms
tired
are so
arms.
sore. The person behind him is like, this is the worst seat I've ever had at a wrestling show. No. So, now I'm going to be looking for the sign. I'm going to see what this person says. Maybe maybe they can take a photo of it and reply back to us before they are at the show on Wednesday. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to gauge your interest in, and folks also, use that Ask WLP hashtag. Gauge your interest on the current programs, the current what I consider the top programs. So obviously MJF is going to be home. He's going to get cheered crazy, more than likely, for this contract signing with Wardlow. Wardlow, I imagine, will get a loud reaction, probably a lot of mixed cheers and boos. So it'll be quite. I think it'll be quite the scene there. I mean, I've been watching all this basketball, and you watch the Grizzlies and the Warriors, and it's just hate and love on the same in the game. The Grizzlies, Dylan Brooks touches the ball, and the crowd just boos him because he
Yeah.
clotheslined one of the Warriors players and fractured his elbow. And then when Steph Curry gets the ball, wild cheers. So I imagine we're going to see that with MJF and Wardlow. But what do you think about this angle so far? Wardlow is so over, but when I try and compare him to people like Bill Goldberg, you get no, it's not nowhere near like that. I'm like, well, what else would you compare it to? Because he's getting these crazy cheers for walking.
Yeah.
He's walking to the ring, and people are going wild. There's no theme music at all, and people are going crazy for the guy. Like, I don't know.
I mean,
what
it's not
Pete
maybe Goldberg. It's not Pete Goldberg, but it is a little bit like Goldberg. I mean, it's impressive how fast he got over. And when he got signed to AEW, do you remember when everybody's like, "Who the hell is a Wardlow?"
I remember that first video package they did, or not even a video package. It was like they shot like a movie. My light keeps going off. I don't know what's going on there. There was like a movie scene, and he punched somebody, or somebody punched him, and it was the way that it was shot. It was like very cinematic. I remember that going like, "Who the heck is this guy?"
But he was
But
an
yeah,
unknown, right? He was virtually an unknown to a
yeah.
lot of wrestling fans, even like the indie guys. He started off in 2014. I, I believe he had a tryout with NXT, right? Like 2018, he had a tryout. They passed on him. I'm trying to remember where he was before this.
How do you pass on that guy though?
I don't
Maybe
know.
he
They
wasn't.
passed on
Maybe
him.
he wasn't as good as he is now. I guess.
Probably not. I mean, starting off, but this, he's very impressive. 6 foot what, 3, 6'2", is at least 260. This dude is a big dude. They don't come around that often, a guy with his physique, and he actually is a good wrestler. So, uh, I was actually surprised when he first came on there because everybody's like, "Who is he?" And I wasn't too familiar with him, to be honest. Were you? Did you know much
No, no,
about
no, not
Wardlow?
at all. I had no idea who he
Yeah,
was.
and that's his real
Remember
name,
he had that's his first name or last name?
Michael Wardlow.
Oh, okay. I thought if that was his real first name, man, rough. Um, I just remember like I didn't know who he was either, and then he was just the big like he was kind of the big boss man, and Cody did the cage match with him where he did the moonsault off the top of the cage, and I was like, oh, this guy's cool, but I would have never forecasted where he is right now as far as how over he is. But part of that is they've they've been really patient with this whole storyline, right? So when I think they struck while the iron was hot, they struck at the perfect time, which word to Vince McMahon, Randy Orton, and Matt Riddle, not ready to break up yet. Don't do it. You got to have some patience. But yeah, okay, so this is obviously a big program. It's maybe second from the top of this show, just under the world title match, the men's world title match. What's the finish for this match? MJF is one of your biggest stars. Wardlow is on the come up. How do you like? How does Tony Khan book the finish here?
Well, here's the thing, right? MJF really doesn't wrestle. It's rare.
Yeah.
So it's
Piper.
not like, yeah, he's like Piper, but he lost to CM Punk already, right?
Yes.
So we've
Yes.
seen him have a loss. I don't think Wardlow should lose this at all. I think it's a big mistake if Wardlow loses this. But I also think, does it hurt MJF? Like, will he suffer if he loses this? I mean,
they probably
you could do a big
believe in
spot.
him.
Yeah,
Right?
the brass
they
knucks could be
believe
the spot.
They believe in his ability to get back to stay over and not be hurt.
Yeah.
Because he can talk his way out of it.
Yeah, I definitely think Wardlow needs to win. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of weird finish. I don't think it's going to be like a clean, unless they just squash him. I mean, just Wardlow just knows, and I don't know. Maybe the stipulation comes into play. There's a lot of moving parts here, but Wardlow has to win this.
I completely agree. If look, I don't know how to book pro wrestling. That's not. I think about it in some sort of booking ways sometimes, but I don't know, like, because it's not just who wins, it's who wins plus what's the next thing that they're going to go on to, and then what's the next thing that the guy who loses is going to go on to, or do they stay like there's so many moving parts in just who's going to be put over or who's going to win that match. So I would believe like you, and that's probably a simple way of thinking, is you don't want to cut Wardlow's momentum, and you kind of hope that you believe that MJF could stay over. So that's how I would do it. But I'm sure Tony Khan has had a plan of what he was going to do before this thing even got going, and we'll have to see. We'll have to wait and see and see where he goes with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got 15 more minutes left. I just wanted to ask you one more thing about another Double or Nothing match, which is CM Punk and Hangman Page. And I want the New York crowd better than just about anybody because of all of your times at Madison Square Garden. Does CM Punk get booed in New York because his previous feud was with the homeboy who's going to get wildly cheered?
Oh yeah. So John Silver. I don't think CM Punk gets booed. Maybe it's Long Island. Maybe. You know what? I think he gets booed. I'm gonna take that back. He's gonna get booed.
Okay, so and I'm going to give this credit to my friend Paul Fontaine because he thought that it was actually brilliant that Hangman Page cuts that heel promo last week on Punk. It was heelish. It was very
It was
heelish.
very heelish. Yeah.
But then come this show, he thinks that Hangman's the one who's going to get cheered over Punk because of this New York crowd, and it kind of creates this interesting dichotomy of, maybe you do have two guys who are heated baby faces rather than one having to play heel and one having to play baby face.
I
So
like that, by the way. I
it's
like that
very
a lot.
interesting.
Heated babyface. A heated
Yeah,
babyface.
yeah,
I
right.
that's a great expression and it describes it. I think he'll be booed because he'll probably want John Silver to kind of get over in his town. I think he'll do the honors in that sense, but I don't think it's going to be a long-term thing. I don't think like it's not going to be canon.
Yeah,
I think the Adam too many Adams. Adam Cole, Adam Page. I think Hangman's promo is canon to the story, but I think if CM Punk comes in this and he starts acting like a heel, which he sometimes does when he's wrestling a hometown person, he'll it'll be forgotten next week.
yeah, for sure. Okay, so I was told that as of Sunday, so I don't know if this is still 100% true, and we'll kind of lean a little bit towards Double or Nothing, but the big boss man, Tony the Leader, said that there are only 2 floor seats left for the F4W section at Double or Nothing. So F4WOnline.com/Vegas is the place to go. And the QA with Dave and Brian, the general admission tickets are still available May 28th, which is actually my birthday, 11
Oh,
a.m.
nice.
at the Silver Nugget. Yeah, so we'll be celebrating my birthday on that
Oh,
weekend
in
as well.
Vegas.
Yeah.
In Vegas. I know
In
where we
Vegas.
could go. I got a place we could go.
Uh-oh. That look tells me that it could be a little dangerous. But okay, so we have 10 minutes left. I kind of wanted to we'll look at some of the questions. People have been firing some questions in about what we had just talked about, but also about this Double or Nothing weekend. You and I hosting this suite party. I think we're going to
man.
do like a pregame show version of We're Live, Pal, right?
Yeah. I think, what time does the sweet party start? Like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock? I think he said 10.
I'll double check here.
By the way, it's going to be a very late night for me because I'm going to be on East Coast time. So 10 o'clock, 1 a.m. for me. So I have to get my bearings in order for this trip.
It's going to be wild, man. It's going to be so wild. And, you're also going to have that, that the Vegas oxygen that just is in every hotel that just kind of keeps your eyes open the whole time.
Yeah.
You'll have that.
They sweeten it a little.
Yeah, so it'll be a lot of I feel like you'll be fine, and then you're just gonna hit a wall, and you're just gonna create parties at
Sunday
10,
morning.
so.
We don't really have anything Sunday playing, right?
There's the brunch if you're going to the brunch, but that's really
Crap,
early.
the brunch.
And then Double or Nothing is whatever 4 o'clock or whatever the time is for that, 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So for this suite party, just so people know, I think I'm not sure. There might be tickets left. I'm not 100% sure, but basically, gonna get Dave in there, gonna get Brian in there to hang out with us. We're gonna, just an intermingling of all the people from the website and the people who are members of the website, and it's gonna get some good conversation, man. Like I'm looking
Absolutely.
forward to it. We're gonna get people, if you want to ask Andrew a question about his hair, we'll corner him. We'll give you that opportunity. But it's just hanging out with people who really support what we do, which is like the coolest way to do it, right? Like if people who watch this show watch you and I every Tuesday and they want to come hang out, I'm just like so for that. I'm just, just to hang out and talk shop and chop it up and,
Oh yeah, me
talk
too.
wrestling or whatever. Like that's
I
just
love it.
that's the coolest thing about this community.
Yeah, I enjoy it every time.
Okay, so last couple minutes here, we'll take a couple of more questions from what we were talking about earlier. This is an interesting one because I don't think I've ever asked you this question. I wonder, have you thought about this, Andrew? Who are
Oh
your
man.
top 5 favorite wrestlers of all time?
Okay, so I always have such a difficult time with this, right? Because it depends on the era.
Mhm.
But I guess my Mount Rushmore of all time, uh, Flair, Shawn, Brett, for sure. Okay. Um, and I want to add a couple modern guys. So let's do Kenny for sure, because I very much enjoy watching Kenny every time. And that's 4. And let's do a 5th. You know what? I have. Let's think. God, I want to go modern because if I would say Taker. You know what? I'm gonna go Taker. But
Wow.
again, my scale changes. Like
Yeah.
all time, it depends on the time, but definitely Flair, Hogan. Like that was my childhood. I absolutely loved it. Austin, I absolutely love. Rock, I absolutely love. But like I wouldn't say The Rock was my favorite wrestler. I definitely would say that Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels my 2 favorite wrestlers of all time. Like there's no question about that. And then everybody else could interchange.
No, it's a great thing because your era of wrestling is about, probably about 5 to 7 years later than when I would have started
Yeah. So
watching.
so
And
what would
so
yours
mine would
be?
be Hogan, Flair,
Okay.
Rock, Austin. And that 5th person, it'd either be Mick or Jericho. I don't know. It's really close there.
See,
And
like
I
it's the
might be
same. It's the same
missing
list, and then
folks.
I feel bad that it's like the same era, But that's the
Yeah.
era that I. But I would say modern wrestling. Kenny Omega, Daniels. You know what? Bryan Danielson, I would put on there because I
Yeah,
I
in
I
the
have the
current
same
modern.
joy.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
I
Modern
have the
list,
same
it's
joy
it's
watching
a little
him.
bit different. Yeah, because
Yeah, so it's
those
different,
guys
but
are
I
awesome.
would say, yeah, Danielson, Punk. I mean Moxley. They're all fantastic.
The hard part is the stuff that we watched when we were younger. It was way bigger to us because we didn't
Hmm.
have a historical template of what to understand, right? So it's like, oh yeah, the first time I saw Hulk Hogan, I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? And who is this guy? And
Who is this?
I would
Who
have
is this
actually
hot
seen
dog
him.
man?
I would have seen him in Rocky 3 before I would have watched him in wrestling. And so
Oh
when I
wow,
saw him, I was like, wait, that's Thunder
that's
Lips.
Thunderlips.
And he's like doing the wrestling thing and he's so cool, so cool and the hero of everything. So yeah, but like that stuff when you're younger, it just means more. Like if you ask me who are my favorite people to watch, like yeah, Danielson is 100% on that list. Moxley is on the list. Kazuchika Okada is on that list. But
Oh yeah.
favorite wrestlers, my fandom, it kind of starts and ends, in like 85 through maybe 99. And then when you get a little bit older, you kind of watch it a little bit differently. And then when you start covering it, you watch it way differently. Like I don't, I kind of, people have said this, beat writers, when they talk about like they're covering sports teams and people will say, well, aren't you a fan of the team you cover? And you're like, I can't be a fan because I have to be
Yeah.
unbiased and I have to report on what happened, and what's going on. But what I'm rooting for is outcomes. And that's how I
Yeah.
watch
Me too.
wrestling
Yeah.
today. Is I root for outcomes in which I think will make the business bigger or will, it'll get more people interested. So it's really about outcomes than it is about if I want Kenny Omega to beat, Kazuchika Okada. It's like, no, I'm interested in where the outcome is because whatever it is to make things a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's scale's a little bit different. I think it's so difficult, especially if you cover wrestling, like to bring it down to 5 people. But it depends on the era, depends on what I was in the mood for. I definitely, Danielson has a place in that. I think Sean, I enjoy watching Danielson as much as I've ever watching Sean or Brett because those were my 2 that I really loved watching wrestle. And everybody else was a character more than anything else. Like Steve Austin, I wasn't watching for the match quality. I was watching because it's freaking Steve Austin. Same thing with The
Yeah.
Rock.
Yeah,
You
totally.
know?
Their
It's
personalities.
in their personalities, and it's sold it. It's. I would love to do like a list of like my all-time favorites because I'm gonna tell you something. Savio Vega's on there. Like a 7-year-old version of me absolutely loves Savio Vega.
Oh, that's a great one.
I
And
don't know
he's
why.
awesome. He was
Yeah, he
awesome.
was awesome.
Okay, so we'll end this here in a second, but I have a different question for you, which is, who are
There it
the
is.
there you go, Los Boricuas, who i- as you've been covering this stuff, interviews. Who have you interviewed? Who's in the business? Who you're just like, this was my favorite thing.
Oh, easy. I could answer this in a split second. Jake Roberts, my best interview I've ever done.
When was
He
this?
and oh god, 20 right when he was living with DDP.
And is it out there? Can we find it?
It is out there. I don't know how much it holds up today. Okay. I think I'm much better today than I was then because we had just started Mat Men. So this has to be like 2012. I don't know, whatever the time frame was, like 2011 to 2013, whatever that time frame was. I thought 20. What is it? What is it, John? 2013.
Producer John.
Okay, perfect. Maybe we could upload that to the Mat Men page. We could do that, John. If we could do that, that'd be awesome. As like a throwback interview. I had a lot of fun with that interview because he was so honest. And Jake terrified me as a kid. Like that was one of the guys. Like like you brought it up, right? We were watching wrestling in a different way because these guys were larger than life. We didn't have an opportunity to interview these guys. Like now, like listen, Danielson, they're all larger than life. Moxley, all up, but we have an opportunity to reach them, and they're kind of our age,
Yeah.
So like it's kind of.
Yeah.
You're not this 7-year-old watching this terrifying man with a snake. I would say he was one of my favorites. Two of the nicest guys I've ever interviewed were Danielson and Chris Danielson, not Brian.
Christopher Daniels.
I'm sorry. Jeez, my brain just stopped. I got Brian Danielson on my mind. Look at that.
Yeah.
Chris Daniels and Kazarian, two separate occasions we interviewed them. They were fantastic, and they had so much fun. They both wanted to stay and do the comic book podcast afterwards, so they just popped on for the comic book podcast after. So they did 2 shows.
That's awesome.
DDP, everybody loved the interview we did with DDP, but I lost control of that interview because Dallas is such a strong personality where he just goes into stories. We did like a 2-hour interview with him. It was supposed to be a 30-minute interview.
Yes.
I've heard those ones.
So I've heard Dallas on multiple podcasts, and it definitely becomes the DDP show, which is when we go back to getting or advertising your own successes, that is A1, the 100%. That's the example right there is DDP. He's one of the best at that. Okay.
I would say, let me think. Is there anybody else? I would say definitely Jake Roberts. That's the one.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's really good. I mean, he's one of the greatest talkers in wrestling history.
Yeah.
For me, it would have just been Omega, Danielson, and that's just with doing stuff with Dave, and Moxley, and Moxley turned it into, hey, I want to talk MMA, and so I did we probably did like 7 or 8 shows on the old feed of me and Moxley just talking MMA.
I got a great one. Okay, I didn't interview him. Actually, I co-hosted with him. I was doing something. WrestleZone was doing something, and they needed to use a studio. This is whenever they held WrestleMania here. Not the last time, but the time before. So, like, what was it, 29? WrestleMania 29? Mm-hmm. So they needed a studio. We did the interview, and it was supposed to be me, X-Pac, and Tom Pritchard. And X-Pac didn't make it, but Tom Pritchard did. And after the it was just like very formal. Like it wasn't like there was no groundbreaking story in this interview. Like the chemistry was okay, but afterwards, this man sat down in my living room and he just educated me.
That's awesome.
And and it was the best education in wrestling you could ever get. He's such a brilliant guy. He was playing with my dog on my couch in my living room, waiting for a car to come pick him up. I mean, just like, and like, it was like an hour it took the car to get here. And I had like an hour seminar with Tom Pritchard in my living room.
Wow.
And I just, my wife wasn't home and she was like, how'd it go? I'm like, man, I don't know. This is going to be one of those stories that I tell. Like, like I learned everything in my living room from Tom Pritchard. Like he was,
Awesome.
what a
It's
sweet
a
man. What a nice man.
Really good person to learn from.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I was still new to all this. Like I was doing the wrestling thing as like a hobby for fun. And then like, that was it. I was like, you know what? I could maybe continue doing this wrestling thing. Maybe there's something in here.
Yeah. I mean,
And now I'm with you. Look how that
happened. He probably influenced you in that way, right?
Yeah.
Like for
sure.
You probably owe a little bit of something to him.
Yeah, of course.
For that.
I say it a lot, yeah.
Continuing to do it. All right. So, yeah, sorry. Apologize. We went a couple minutes over here, but I wanted to add those last couple of questions for Andrew because I was just interested. I'd never asked you that question before.
Yeah.
So thank you to the folks who asked us the questions. Thank you to people who are watching us. Thank you to people who are listening on the podcast. We only have 2 more We're Live pals to go until before the pregame show that we're doing at the Sweet Party in Double or Nothing weekend. So they'll actually get a double dose of us that week. They'll get a show on Tuesday and then one on Wednesday or on Saturday night. But you know what? Now that I think about it, we may not be able to do one post Double or Nothing if you're going to be in LA. So we may have to skip that.
I will be in LA on Tuesday. No, I could do it because I have a studio. I could do it from the GFQ studios in Los Angeles, California. I could do it from the studio there. Yeah.
There we go. All right. So
studios. Yeah.
Thanks to everybody. So for Andrew, I'm Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.